Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a new episode of Flesh Wound Farce, where we review and discuss your and our favorite comedy films. This is the world's first and only combination trivia host and professional wrestling announcer of Chilean descent that currently resides in Southern California, Ozzy V. And with me, as always, on this program, first in the Northern California Bay Area, world-famous juggler Greg Larson. How you doing, Greg?
Ozzy, I'm having a little bit of a difficult time, to be quite honest.
How so?
Well, I mean, I feel like I'm going to be distracted throughout this episode. You've got a lot of good stuff behind you, and Dan Aykroyd. But all around, good.
It's a fair point.
How you doing, Ozzy?
I'm great. Those watching or rather listening to the audio version, this is a film starring Dan Aykroyd. And Todd, that's why we have him in the background as well. And I'll get into the rest of the cast momentarily, but right now, the rest of the cast of this particular program, Flesh Wound producer Todd. How you doing?
You almost forgot me again.
No, I didn't. No, are you kidding me? Okay, I almost have to have the disclaimer here because I equally as irritated that you didn't have the faith that I was doing a whole turnaround to introduce you, but you're like, no, fuck Ozzy. He's an asshole. That's
and 2 weeks in a row, Todd. No jersey.
Absolutely ridiculous.
It's disappointing.
Now, as mentioned earlier, we are reviewing Dr. Detroit, starring Dan Aykroyd, written by Bruce J. Friedman, Carl Gottlieb, and Robert Boris, released on May 6, 1983, with a runtime of 89 minutes. If you've never heard of this movie before, you wouldn't be alone. I didn't know about this movie until Todd mentioned it a few weeks ago. So let's show him the trailer.
Hello, I'm Dan Aykroyd, and welcome to this fine motion picture emporium. It's nice to know you're here tonight, rather than at home shoving cheap little plastic cartridges into cheap imported video systems that keep you and your family hostage in your own home or apartment. Now, let's face it, big screen entertainment is what it's all about. We've enjoyed it for years. Movies are great. There's nothing like a good movie, or even a bad one for that matter. Remember the classics, though, such as Dr. No. Dr. Zhivago. And now, at last, Dr. Detroit. Attention, ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please.
Clifford Scriblow never expected to be anything but a humble scholar.
Nothing's going to change my life. My life is set.
Until one night, he came upon 4 ladies in distress.
Oh, yeah!
And to protect their honor, uphold the law,
Step aside, lackey, or you'll be eating my food.
and fight for the American way. He became the fancy dressing, flashy dancing, death-defying, jacuzzi-dipping,
Don't forget power walking, systems analysis, rock climbing.
dynamic defender of decency,
Dr. Detroit? Dr. Detroit. Dr. Detroit! Hey, what?
Dr. Detroit.
I can feel my hair grow.
Dan Aykroyd is Dr. Detroit.
This is the best time I've ever had in my entire life! Do you hear me, world?
Okay, man, I actually have a few favorite parts in this movie. Now, what is fascinating about this trailer, I will say some of the stars that were not mentioned, because you did hear Dan Aykroyd in the beginning, I'll get into the character in a second, but you have Dan Aykroyd starring as Clifford Scriblow, Howard Hesseman as Smooth Walker, and as a kid, I always remember him as head of the class and Flight of the Navigator. So to see him in this movie was quite the amusing. It tickled my brain, so to speak. You also had Lynn Whitfield, Lita Lay, TK Carter, Donna Dixon, and Fran Drescher in the movie as well. Now, what I found fascinating about the trailers, they didn't specifically go into the detail of what the movie was about, just people in distress. So I'm gonna pull this one line from IMDb that reads, "A pimp on the run trusts his sex workers to a meek professor of literature who accepts the challenge." And it's absolutely fantastic. Dan Aykroyd really brings a lot to this. I think what's also fascinating is it reminds me of almost a likable Dwight, if you will. If that makes sense. Dwight from The Office. Because Dwight always intended, like, not necessarily to be likable, just being a kind of a jerk, like just like a blowhard, whatever. But this guy seemed like a likable version. I wouldn't be surprised if Rainn Wilson drew any inspiration from him for his own role in The Office. Greg, any initial thoughts?
Well, this was a movie that, like you, I'd never heard of. So it was fun. And anytime I see Dan Aykroyd, I'm excited. But after seeing that trailer and him bagging on video games, which in all fairness, if he's talking about plastic going into the game console, the stories weren't very deep, but a lot of video games are as good as movies and often can go deeper into it. And it pissed me off so much that he was bagging on games that I broke my laptop, so I'm doing this from my phone now.
Todd, initial thoughts.
Well, okay. I've been pushing this one since day one. Because when we came up with the name, this was the movie in my brain that defines what a farce is. And because if you list off the things, it all nails it. I've liked this movie since I'm going to pull an Ozzy, since I was probably way too young to see it. Not that there's anything like visually or anything really bad with it. Because like the fact that he was a pimp totally flew over my head. And them smoking weed, I was like, oh, it's like going to Uncle's house. So I didn't even so, and I might have seen the TV version first. I'm not 100%, but I know I've seen it since. But yeah, this is one of my favorites growing up. I actually wanted to be him for Halloween after I saw it, but my mother kind of talked me out of that when she's like, no one's going to get it. But unfortunately, I've never been Dr. Detroit for Halloween yet.
I was about to say. Yet. In terms of, man, there was a couple of moments that really made me lose it, but the favorite movie I've seen Fran Drescher in, favorite role rather, because it seems one thing that it seems that once she hit the nanny, she's being typecasted in those kind of roles. Can you just do the nanny, right?
Yeah. But
this seemed like just an actual straight performance, which was actually really funny, because I'd always been around that other character, but that was fun to see. But in terms of a moment that actually made me laugh so hard that it made my stomach hurt, I had to watch it a couple more times. He's directing a class on or a lecture on chivalry, and he tells the class, all together now, what is the chivalristic code, the code of chivalry? And everybody not in unison just starts mumbling. All the students, college students, just start mumbling, and he kind of looks just from side to side, right? And as everything trails off, you hear, and justice for all. And
yes,
I completely lost my shit. It was just, and I had to see it a couple more just because it was that they did such a good job on the timing, because there's a lot of moments actually in this film that were added audio after the fact, ADR'd, if you will, and that was one of them. But it was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And I got something else written down, but Greg, I'll let you go.
Well, On your moment of Fran Drescher, like I was like, is this Fran? Is this Janice from Friends? I don't know who's who nowadays because I totally Mandela'd myself about Friends and Janice. So, but that being said, I'd have to say my favorite line. There's a moment where this guy's like, "Oh, I'm gonna kick your ass," and he's like, "Why? I'm a chiropractor, and I'm gonna use my skills in a negative way against you." And it was just such a great line. Let alone his power walking was fantastic.
Absolutely. And Todd.
All right, geez, I gotta nail it down to one. Okay, well, I got a line and I got a scene.
Okay.
I love the courtroom scene where he has to play when he plays the Southerner. Even when I was a kid, it made me laugh. I don't think I got it till I was an adult, but to me, it was just Foghorn Leghorn when I was a youngster. And then the line when he finds out that they're prostitutes, and the Baldwin's like, "They're hookers, they're whores." Just his delivery gets me every time. Every time.
Just to touch on that, on the courtroom scene where you're talking about, where he dresses from that other lawyer's outfit to impress the judge, who is named Judge Robert E. Lee Jackson. Which, and then I mean, to your point that you were saying earlier, how this movie hit so many points of actually being the definition of a farce.
I made a list, so
and the characterization of that judge, given the circumstances, was so just perfect. And then the line delivered, I'm not going to repeat it, but as people were exiting the courtroom and the reaction that occurred afterward was my 2 of 3 I have on the list. But
and then when he's talking about to come down and have barbecue at where, you know, his family's restaurant.
That whole scene is absolutely fantastic. It's almost it's funny to I just saw the screen. Why? This isn't necessary.
It was organic. We were talking about barbecue.
Damn it. That was the worst decision I ever made. Anyway, just in case anybody listening to the audio version, a photo of me with ribs was on the screen.
Bones in his
I
mouth.
didn't see it because I was trying to figure out some information pertinent to the show, because I'm focused on this episode, not focused on throwing. There it is again. Can we not? Man, see, I'm losing the train of thought. Anyhow, that whole scene. But the next line that made me lose it is when you have Cliff, or Detroit, having a nightmare where he wakes up yelling, "No, I will not sell my own mother," as his mom and the dad. I completely lost it at that moment. Like, that was like, again, that number 2, but still just as entertaining. Did you have anything you wanted to say, Todd, before any additional favorite moments before we move on to the rating?
See, I my list of like what makes it a farce, I don't know if it's too spoilery, but
then you could leave whatever out if you wish.
Yeah. All right, like these are just the little points I made. Like, it's a fight between 2 rival limo companies. He makes up the name Dr. Detroit on the spot. He needs to find himself a patsy. Nerd becomes a pimp. Wins the players ball. Sorry, that might be spoilery, but
nobody knows what a player's ball is.
Okay. I don't know about nobody. Nerd becomes a pimp. Oh, nice. So that would needs to be in 2 places at the same time. How many times have you seen that play out?
Mrs. Doubtfire.
I was thinking Three's Company on a good portrayal of it, but that's a whole nother thing. The random big dance number, which I was wondering if Ozzy was going to hate or not.
No, because you know why? Because it made sense.
It did.
There was reason to have it, because everybody has a reason to celebrate. Much like in Encino Man, as they're at the high school, there's no there's no more conflict going on. So of course they could have a stupid dance, whatever.
And the last one was his secret identity revealed. Now, I want to tell you this, and I don't know if it just clicked to me like when I watched it last night. This is basically a superhero movie with the whole dual identities thing and the costume and the colorful changes. That's what it feels like, just an adult.
It's funny how you mention it. It felt like a superhero movie, but for me, it felt a little bit like Mrs. Doubtfire.
Don't make me turn on my
some of
favorite
us,
movie.
Mrs. Doubtfire is a superhero.
Oh, look at that. There you go.
Well, it's more fun to watch him become a pimp than a woman. Sorry.
Anyhow, going to the rating, I had
Some pimps.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Just saying, some pimps maybe do become women. So it's a new time. It's a new era.
Now, I had an absolute blast, but it didn't really hit me like as being one of those that hits me as being a 5, but I enjoyed it so much that I'd have to put it at a 4.5 for me.
Wow.
That's a little high. I understand that, but it delivered it into that point. If you had like a couple more of some of these moments, man, if I could be honest, and if I could give it like seriously a 4.75, I would give it a 4.75.
Why
But-
can't you?
Okay, then I'll give it a 4.75. You gave Mallrats a 4.20, so I can give this one a 4.75, I guess. Greg?
Yeah. This is tough. So I'd have to agree with you, giving it a 4.5. But I have to give Dan Aykroyd a 5 because man, he was just. I mean, this is Dan Aykroyd at his finest. I mean, he goes all over the place. It really shows his range. So yeah, him alone a 5, but the movie 4.5.
I got something to speak on that after Todd mentions his rating.
Well, it will come as no surprise. I'm a 5 on this one. Yeah, I've loved it since I was too young to see it, and it like I said, it's not too adult, I don't think. Which when we did review this when the Blu-ray came out on Farce, no, sorry, After Dark. I can't remember one of the other shows, and that was Dan's big complaint because it's not a sex comedy, but that's not what it is. So
That's
gave it
weird.
like a
Dan
3.
never complains about a lack of nudity.
Right. Oh, trivia note. This is where Dana Aykroyd met his future wife, Donna Dixon.
And Donna Dixon was the dream woman in Wayne's World.
Yes. And still was Dan Aykroyd's wife at that time. Still together.
There you go. Now, funny thing is I was thinking about this, speaking of Greg's point about Dan Aykroyd being a 5, is as I was watching this, I was thinking, this is kind of like before Mike Myers. This was like the biggest, like, and especially of Saturday Night Live, like who else had that kind of range? You know what I mean? That felt almost like a poor man's Mike Myers in terms of what Mike Myers was able to do in Austin Powers. So when Mike Myers came out with Austin Powers, I was a big like, holy cow, man. And yeah, that was to a certain degree, but a decade before that, not more than a decade before that.
I'm just going to say it. Dan Aykroyd's best film. Yes, I meant what I said. Sorry, Ozzy.
Just why do you apologize?
Because I know you're going to bring up Ghostbusters.
And you would.
Yeah, I'd keep my answer.
Okay. I mean,
because this is pure Aykroyd. See, the other one's a little bit more of an ensemble.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
The way they talk about it in the commentary in terms of way it was received in screenings it was more like the Avengers kind of popularity that Ghostbusters had. A lot of cheering happened. But yeah, this was all Aykroyd and it's, I think if you look at other Dan Aykroyd movies, it's John Belushi in Blues Brothers, Great Outdoors, John Candy, right? You're not really used to seeing Coneheads had Jane Curtin. You're not used to seeing Dan Aykroyd primarily.
Yeah.
Fran Drescher is great, but this was more Dan Aykroyd than anything else.
Yeah.
So, 100% recommended. Now, Todd, can you tell us if this is streaming anywhere?
It is not. You can purchase it on Vudu or other digital, outlets. Just got a Blu-ray special edition released in the past couple years. You can find it on DVD. I got it on Laserdisc.
Well, there you go. Todd has it on Laserdisc. So that concludes this anything else? Any final thoughts on Dr. Detroit, actually, before we start closing things out?
I'll just go see it. It's a fun film.
And you don't even need to go anywhere. You can see it from the very comfort of your own home or apartment or hotel room. But anyhow,
Ozzy, I told them to go. They have to go. They just don't watch it at home. Watch it somewhere else. Get outside. Go somewhere. Watch this film. Share it with others.
Okay. The only thing I would find a challenge is that if somebody goes to a park to watch this movie and something happens to them at the park,
We're
I
not
don't wanna be like,
responsible.
Greg from Flesh Wound Farce told me to go outside and watch this movie. And I went outside and watched the movie. That's why I don't have a laptop anymore. So I'm suing Flesh Wound.
So we'll have to have another Ozzy moment where you like, the opinions of Greg do not reflect the Flesh Wound.
So, Ozzy, what do we have next week?
I was hoping that we would kind of just leave it as a mystery surprise.
Ooh, so we have a mystery surprise next week.
We have a mystery surprise coming up next week. But after that, we will be delving into Christmas comedies because it's going to be the month of December. Next time after that, so 2 weeks from today will be December 6th. And that will mean the kickoff of the Christmas comedies. If you have any suggestions you'd like us to check out, please let us know in these comments now.
Although Lost Skeleton 2 is set during Christmas.
Yes.
It's not. Oh, that was Christmas for me.
No. It's apples to oranges. Just so wrong. So wrong. We're not going to reveal what these films are yet because, to be honest, they still need to be determined. So that's where your voice can be heard. Let us know in the comments if you have any suggestions for any Christmas movies, Christmas comedies that you'd like us to see. Die Hard isn't a comedy, so I wouldn't even suggest it myself. You jerks. Anyhow, that is Flesh Wound producer Todd and world famous juggler Greg. I am Ozzy V, and we'll see you next week right here on Flesh Wound Farce.